Hey there, guys. All right, today we are back with some more of the Great War. This time we are on to week 48. We are nearly there to the 1 year anniversary. Well, yeah, 1 year start of. Oh, wow. Really been watching this for a while now. God dang. But this time, the Austro-Hungarian Empire strikes back. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord. My brain blanked for a hot second there. Couldn't remember the name Discord. And I would also love it if you followed me over at Twitch. Now that all that's out of the way, let's go ahead and just dive right in. Let's get straight into it.
The Austro-Hungarian Imperial Army had fought so badly during the early months
4 seconds in and we're already roasting the Austro-Hungarians. I love it.
of the war that by the spring of 1915, it had seemed on the verge of collapse. It had not only been humiliated, it had lost huge amounts of land and even one of the great cities of the empire, Lemberg. But this week, after 6 weeks of triumphant advance, the empire took Lemberg back.
Woo! Woohoo!
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the 6-week-long Second Battle of Artois came to an end, with 100,000 total French casualties in a series of attacks designed to prevent the Germans from sending troops east to fight Russia. But over on the Eastern Front, an Austro-German force of over 500,000 men was pushing the Russians ever back to their own territory, while in the south, the Italians were moving towards the Austrian border. Here's what came next. It's hard to imagine how much more effective the Germans could be at this point on the Eastern Front if they had been given more troops from the west, since they were still plowing through the Russians after 2 months of the Gorlice-Tarnów offensive. This combined Austro-German campaign had erased 8 months of Russian gains in weeks, and the scale of the battles was truly mind-boggling. For example,
I wonder if this German success is more related to just the Russian armies being tired of fighting along this front, or it's on the Russian side, or if it's on the German side. If it's like the German leadership here, because, you know, obviously the person, I forget his name, person currently leading this massive German army was not leading it during the time, up until the last few weeks, had not been leading the German East Army. So I'm kind of curious if it's due to him that the Russians are falling back, or more so just because of the sheer overwhelming numbers that the Germans are just bringing down upon the Russians here. I don't know. And I'm not actually sure which way to think, if it's more Russian side, or if it is the general, or if it's just the Germans coming in with a lot of men. I'm not sure.
Even though the Russians were in retreat and losing battle after battle, it's been estimated that between the end of April and mid-June, 600,000 Austro-German troops were put out of action. They may have been winning victory after victory. They were paying a price for it. Now, the Russian front had shrunk over the past 6 weeks from 500 kilometers to just over 150. When it had been entirely unified before, it had been the longest battle line in the history of the world. Pretty cool that I get to say that. By this point, the German and Austro-Hungarian Colossus was advancing through Galicia towards Lemberg, also known as Lviv, or Lvov. This was the capital of Austrian Galicia, but had been in Russian hands since September. On the 17th, the Russians began evacuating Lemberg. Russian General Nikolai Ivanov had no intention of fighting a pitched battle for it against German General Mackensen, whose
Mackensen, that's the general. All right. Had to go real American there.
Phalanx was simply too strong and had 2,500 big guns.
You know, with the amount of emphasis they are putting on the big guns, I have a feeling that perhaps Indy believes that the big guns played a major factor here in the German success. And you know what? I'll agree with it, because I don't know what else to think.
Mackensen's force was the center of the German offensive, but the Russians were seriously punishing the wings. General Böhm-Ermoli, for example, reportedly lost half his effective force trying to break through at Grodek and Dornfeld, 25 kilometers south of Lemberg. But on the 20th, Russian railway connections to Lemberg were cut. Lemberg and Rava Ruska were going to fall, and fall they did on the 22nd, the former to Böhm-Ermoli and the latter to Mackensen. Mackensen was promoted to field marshal that same day. General Ivanov withdrew his forces toward the Bug River. If things seemed to be going badly for Russia in the field this week, they were not much better at home. On June 15th, in Petrograd, Ivan Goremykin, the president of the Council of Ministers, basically the prime minister, had a breakdown and asked the Tsar to replace him. That didn't happen. That same day, several other ministers tried to convince the Tsar not to convene the Duma, the government council assembly, and urged him that Russia could no longer continue the war. But on the 20th, the Constitutional Democrats demanded that the Fourth Duma be recalled and a new government formed that would be acceptable to the liberals. It was decided that this would happen August 1st, the one-year anniversary of Russia's declaration of war. Also on the 20th, Russian Minister of War Vladimir Sukhomlinov was relieved of duty on charges of negligence, but was reassured by the Tsar that he did not believe rumors of Sukhomlinov's treason. Sukhomlinov was, though, eventually accused of treason in 1916, and his political trial was with a public jury for the first time in Russian history. His wife got Rasputin and the Tsarina to defend him, and he was eventually freed, but the public was disgusted with the whole affair, and some claim this actually did more damage to the Tsar than Rasputin's scandal. Sukhomlinov died in Berlin in 1926. His memoirs, written 2 years earlier, were dedicated to Kaiser Wilhelm. I'd like
Okay, so he was a traitor. Whoa. Drama!
to look now at the newest front, the Italian front, for a minute. We've talked a bit about the Italian-Austrian front since Italy joined the war with the Allies last month, but I'll go over it in brief again here. Most of that front was in the highest mountains in Europe, from the Tyrol to the Julian Alps, and Austria-Hungary held those mountain crests. At the very western end, Trentino, there were 9 routes that led through passes. At the east, where the Isonzo River is, was an avenue of possible advance, but beyond the river, the ground rises to 2 plateaus that were basically enormous natural fortresses, one of them being broken by a succession of steep ridges, and the other described by James Edmonds as a howling wilderness of stones as sharp as knives.
Ooh.
Now, all of this terrain would have been pretty tricky for even highly skilled mountain troops. Italy did actually have such troops, but only enough for 2 brigades. Most of the Italian army, though, came from towns and farms, roughly a quarter from the south or Sicily. Thing is, these southerners had only been part of Italy for 40-something years, and when they thought of a better life, most of them did not look to the north for inspiration, but rather to America. Actually, the whole army was undertrained compared to the other warring nations, and it had a serious lack of modern artillery, which played a huge factor everywhere so far this war. Italy had only 120 heavy guns at this point. One big strength that Italy did have was its officers, specifically the ones that came from the former Kingdom of Savoy. They were professional, they were well trained and educated, and above all, they were patriotic. They knew their business. Their biggest problem, though, was the man in charge, Chief of Staff Luigi Cadorna. He actively exercised his constitutional right of supreme authority over the army, independent of king or prime minister, and he was brutal. Just cheating a bit and seeing the future, Cadorna dismissed a total of 217 generals from duty during the war. Now, his plan at the beginning of Italy's war effort was for a rapid breakthrough on the Isonzo. His men would break through the mountain barrier and then follow the paths cut by the Drava and Sava rivers into Klagenfurt in the north and Zagreb further south and east. This would put them in the very heart of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. You can see the similarities between his plans and the Russian plans in April to push through the Carpathians and into the Hungarian plains, but the Russian plans were far more realistic. For starters, the Julian Alps, which you'd have to negotiate to get to Klagenfurt, are tougher than the Carpathians to tackle, though at least it wasn't winter. So anyhow, this week, on June 23rd, the Italian army attacked at what would become known as the First Battle of the Isonzo, facing a single Austro-Hungarian entrenchment. Now, before Italy's entry in the war, Austria had been holding the border with Italy with local militias. But since May, 4 divisions had arrived, and by this time, the Austrian Fifth Army, as it was now known, 7 divisions strong, was under the command of General Svetozar.
Is it the Fifth Army because the other 4 were wiped out by Austro-Hungarian incompetence?
Borojevic, one of the war's most capable generals. Still, they were heavily outnumbered. But the Italian infantry, with more bravery than skill, advanced en masse and were stopped.
Well, at least they're brave. You know, can give that to them, right?
In no man's land, taking 2,000 killed and 12,000 wounded. Now that sounds like an awful lot more wounded than killed, and we would see that again and again on this front, because bullets or exploding shells would splinter the rocky terrain into flying shards, which were particularly harsh for the head or eyes. I haven't said anything about the Western Front or Gallipoli this week, and I'm not going to. Events there will have to wait until next week. But to recap the events of this week, the Italians were unable to make progress against the Austrians in the south, and the Austrians and Germans scored a major victory by retaking Lemberg. Russian chaos in the field was matched by chaos at home, and the Germans gained a new field marshal. That was a big deal, retaking Lemberg. None of the great cities of Europe had fallen for many months now, and when you realize that Austria-Hungary had also retaken the fortress of Przemysl 2 weeks ago, you can see that, amazing but true, the empire was very much in the ascendant, with Russia totally on the run. But the Russians weren't stupid. They were under-equipped and outgunned, yes, but they still had their two great advantages: an endless supply of men and the vast open spaces of Russia. How far would the Germans and Austrians penetrate into Russia? Would they suffer the same fate as Napoleon and eventually be unable to supply their troops? Would a war of attrition finally wear them down and give the Russians the upper hand? Well, that's the future. We'll have to wait and see. But one thing I can absolutely guarantee: hundreds of thousands of men would die. Przemysl.
Millions.
You heard that name at least 100 times in our show back in 1914 and early 1915. Konrad von Hötzendorf, Austrian Army Chief of Staff, sacrificed a few 100,000 men to save the trapped army in the fortress, and still did not achieve his goal. If you want to find out how he Hötzendorf the whole thing, click here for that episode.
If you had going to be a term in this series, you fuck up, you're just gonna be referred to as Hötzendorfen. I agree. I like it. Might use it myself. Well, that was the Austro-Hungarian Empire Strikes Back, the Great War, Week 48. This was another one of the weaker episodes. I don't know. I wasn't vibing with this one. I mean, stuff was happening, and certainly there was stuff being accomplished. Pretty big stuff, right? The recapture of Lemberg. But overall scale, it was just the Eastern Front and the Italian Austro Front. So it was kind of very minimal. So, yeah, a bit weaker for me. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.